Tech Revision with Mrs. Swanee Pooh. Hi Year 11, this is a really quick video just taking you through what to expect in the exam in terms of the structure of the exam, hopefully a few reminders and a little bit of exam technique to hopefully get you to think about how you can get as many marks as possible in the exam. So firstly, do not forget that you need to bring your calculator, and it also recommends that you bring a protractor as well. Make sure you're using the correct kind of pen. There are some multiple choice questions at the beginning that you must make sure that you fill in correctly, and all the dimensions that are given in the paper are in millimeters. So this was actually your Year 11 mock, but it follows the exact same structure, apart from your actual paper in the exam is going to be 2 hours long. So don't lose any marks by doing that. And if you make a mistake, make sure you cross it out and follow the instructions basically in this section. So you will have a multiple choice part of the paper that looks a little bit like this one. And you can see it tests you on a range of different questions. These are all about materials. These ones, one of them is about electronics, one of them is about softwoods. That one is about mechanisms and some stuff about sustainability. And now you can see it flips over into slightly longer questions, 2 marks and 4 marks. This one is 2 properties of manufactured boards. This one is all about just-in-time manufacturing. And that is the end of section A. Okay, so there could be the odd little maths question in section A as well, but section A is mostly short answer questions and multiple choice. Now, section B is all about you focusing in on a particular area. So for this to be in section B is quite odd because this is all about forces, and I can go through some of the answers on this in a future video if requested. But you'll be asked specifically about manufacturing of materials, okay? Manufacturing of products and materials, okay? So as you know, in lessons we've been focusing mostly on polymers. You may know some timber processes, and obviously textile students, you will know textiles processes. This is a great example. So you might get a question like this where it asks you to choose one of the processes in the table below. Now, addition just means to be adding things to a product. And we did this in the exam. So you guys did lamination of wood, where you made a mold, something like this, for example, out of styrofoam. And we used layers of veneer wood, glued them together, and then you ended up being able to make a curved piece of wood like so. Okay, so that was lamination. Notice that it says use notes and sketches. So if you were to use notes only, you would lose marks, so pay big attention to that, and also choose the correct process. So think polymers, polymers, polymers. Okay, there should be one that you can talk about polymers in. If you're not sure, I mean, if you're at complete loss, obviously choose the one that you think you can get some marks from. For example, soldering, if you mentioned solder and soldering irons, you'd probably pick up a couple of marks. Even if you mentioned sewing and spoke about needles and threads, you'd pick up a bit. But you should hopefully know enough information about some of these processes to answer this question confidently. Right, then you'll have some other types of questions that usually you can focus in towards your chosen area of expertise. So with us it's polymers, but for quality control and one method of quality control, I spoke about this in a previous video about the purpose of quality control, you know, checks at each stage of manufacture to, you know, keep the customer happy, and to make a high quality product. And one method of quality control, things like depth stops and go, no-go gauges. If you've got no clue what I'm on about, watch the video about quality control, which is only about 6 or 7 minutes long. So you might have some questions about other things to do with manufacturing. Think back to your NEAs and just try and think of things that you did in your NEA to help you when you made your product. So for example, using things like templates would be a good answer as well for here. Here again, on number 15, you're being asked to choose a material category. So all day long we should be choosing polymers, unless we are obviously textile students. You know, the source of origin for our chosen material is crude oil. Okay, and then here we go, it's asking a process used to convert your chosen material category into a workable form. Now with workable form, don't get confused, it doesn't mean injection molding, blow molding or extrusion. It means fractional distillation. Okay, to get that original material to its workable form is fractional distillation. And again, it says notes and or sketches. So you could use notes or you could do some sketches with some notes on it as well. But obviously for fractional distillation, you're going to be drawing the distillation column, the fraction with all the different fractions, the crude oil coming in here, some heat, and then obviously the different fractions being siphoned off. You're going to talk about cracking, and you're going to talk about polymerization, okay, to get them into useful polymers and useful sizes, okay. So fractional distillation, do not get confused in the exam. Make sure that you're sure exactly what you're being asked to talk about. Is it a manufacturing process, a commercial manufacturing process, or is it to get it to its workable form? Right, next one. I reckon this might be one that would come up in the exam this year. Classic one about the design and manufacture of products has an effect on our planet and environment. Analyze and evaluate. So already evaluate means the positives and the negatives, okay. The issues a consumer may consider before deciding to purchase products. Give some examples in your answer. So this is where you could bring in the 6 R's. So you could talk about reducing, can't spell, reduce, reuse, rethink, repair. So you could think about all of these things. There's always one I can't remember. I won't go all through these now, but you could talk about the 6 R's. So for example, consumers maybe decide to use only or buy only products that can be easily repaired. Okay. It could be that you decide to buy products that have materials that have been reused. For example, clothes made from recycled materials. Okay, already that is a good example. They might also think about the product life cycle. So is it coming from, you know, the extraction of the material, is it coming from a finite resource? Transport, you know, you could talk almost about something like called food miles, which is how far a product has traveled, so it's better to buy local. You can bring in information like this, absolutely fine, even if it's not really, that's not really product design related, but it's correct, so you can bring things like that in. You could talk about the end of life of the product. Can it be easily recycled? So for example, an aluminium can is much better than a plastic bottle. Okay, so with these kind of questions, anything to do with the environment, things like that, try and think 6 R's, think product life cycle, and make sure you give some examples in your answer. Right, you then may come up against this. So this is section C. So this is your designing and making principles. So this should be relatively common sense kind of stuff, and it might bring in some skills that you've used in your NEAs. You guys might remember these questions. There might be a product analysis question asking you to look at some information about a product, and then to actually analyze that against different criteria. So here on this question, we're being asked to talk about the suitability for the user. So the user is, or we can already see, is ages 4 to 12. And on the other question, it asks you about safety. So the main reasons that people lost marks on this question is you need to link it back to the user and make sure that you aren't just repeating this stuff. So for example, the use of non-slip surfaces, you know, would be good, is good and is suitable for the user, as they may be playing in the rain, and this could help them to not slip, and this could reduce slips. Okay, so make sure that you justify everything. Okay, you justify and you back everything up with some points. If you just repeat this stuff back to you, back to the examiner, you will not get marks. So again, there was another question about, this time, the safety features of the product. So when you're talking about safety, think about, you know, stability, slippy surfaces, how easy something could fall apart. You know, if it could rust or become damaged, that could expose sharp edges. So think about a huge range of things there. Right, the next question talks about anthropometrics, which is all about the measurements of the human body. This question tripped a few people up because they actually completely forgot to actually mention any of these numbers and why they make sense. So for example, it's asking you, analyze and evaluate how a designer would use the anthropometric data in Table 2 to design the playground equipment. Well, it might be that if you look at the picture of the playground equipment, you will see there's like some monkey bars. You might want to use different measurements based on this equipment to make sure everyone can use the monkey bars. So for example, if you design the monkey bars to have a distance of 650 millimeters between them, so if you imagine one monkey bar's there, the next one is there, that means that poor old 4-year-old and poor 8-year-old can't use that piece of equipment. So you might want to use the smaller measurement, which we would maybe call the 5th percentile, so the slightly smaller measurement. This isn't quite right because these aren't averages here, they are just the smaller, the kind of the middly and the top range. But you can see that you might make this, if I just rub that out a second, if you made that actually 450, that means that everyone would be able to use that piece of equipment, because everyone can reach 450 or 420, sorry. Didn't quite read that properly. So anthropometrics, make sure again that you're putting enough detail in. Now there will be some maths in there. This maths focuses on tolerance, asking you to find the percentage of 275, so you need to find 0.5% of 275, and then take that away from 275. Take it away and also add it, because it says the component can be 0.5% smaller and 0.5% larger. Most people got that right in the exam. And there's another example here of some percentage waste. So be ready for some maths questions, but remember there is nothing in here that is any different to your GCSE maths. So make sure you show your working. That's extremely important, and always make sure you know, are you answering in 2 decimal places or 1 decimal place? Make sure that you do that. Right, last few pages of this paper. a slightly longer answer question about designers collaborating, working together. Unlikely to come up the exam this year, but you could have some longer answer questions about some of the other things that are in the focus. And I've skipped over it there, but it did say to give some examples in your answer as well. This one is a health and safety question, which I think most of you would be able to answer. The reason people lost marks in this question is they just put goggles. Okay, making sure that you say to protect your eyes from dust or flying, you know, bits of particles of wood flying around. Make sure that you justify and explain everything really clear to make sure that you're getting the marks. Right, these two questions are about surface finishes of materials. This one is about different drawing techniques and why, the advantages of 3D drawing over 2D drawing. So 3D drawing, you can see the proportion of the product. In 3D, you can also see the parts in relation to each other, as well as all the sides at once. It's easier to visualize. So that's something that potentially could come up in the exam. And then we've got these horrible questions about orthographic drawing. I'm going to do a separate video about orthographic drawing, so don't worry about those for now. Orthographic drawing, there could be something about isometric, worth keeping an eye out for that question. We have another maths question here, which is asking you to do a little bit of pi r squared, so make sure that you're happy with this. You're just basically calculating the volume of this product here and finding out how much material you would need for that product. Again, people lose marks because they forgot to round it to the nearest millimeters. But literally, if you just went 100 times 100 times 10, which gives you the volume of this kind of flat cuboid, that would be a mark. Okay, so don't underestimate not writing enough. Make sure that you show all of your working. Okay, right, I'm going to go through the last bits quite quickly. This one is a classic one that comes up. I really hope that something like this comes up. Something about why it's important to develop prototypes when you're actually making products. We do that loads in your NEA. You show your clients, you make them in CAD so that you can 3D print them. It allows you to see any mistakes or problems. But yeah, that's pretty much the exam. That's the structure of the exam. This was a slightly shortened exam, so you might have a few more bits in there, but you will have a core. So the section A is going to be your core stuff. Section B is going to be about either your polymers or textiles. And then section C is kind of everything else. Everything else. And most of the focus seems to be on those kind of drawing techniques. Right, I hope that was useful, just giving you an idea of what you're going to be coming up against on Wednesday. And if I don't hear from any of you, massive good luck with it all. See you later, guys.